Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraja Ashwatara Sata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON Chai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
I'll do it.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari 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 Bo. Hare Krishna Hare. Oh gosh. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 1, Verse 59. Let's wait for it to come up. Is it 4:159? That's 59. Oh, okay. Let's wait for the verse. So, oh, I think you have to go to the index. If you click on it, yeah. Chapter 1, verse 59. Oh.
Chapter first. Oh, you can keep going.
Okay. Is it there? Yeah, it's fourth canto 4, first chapter, verse 59. So I don't know if you.
Oh, you can start. We can speak over the phone.
Okay. Tavimo ve bhagavato.
Imo ve bhagavato.
Tav imo ve bhagavato.
Imo ve bhagavato.
Harid amshav ighagato.
Hare amshav yahagato.
Harid amshav ighagato.
Hare amshav yahagato.
Bhara vyayaya cha bhuva.
Paravyaya cha bhuvaha.
Bhara vyaya cha bhuvaha.
Paravyaya cha bhuvaha.
Krishno yadu kurudvahu.
Krishna yadu kurudvahu.
Krishno yadu kurudvadhu.
Krishna yadu kurudvahu.
Tav imo ve bhagavato.
Tav imo ve bhagavato.
Harer Amshav Igha Gato Bharavyaya Cha Bhuvaha Krishna Yadu Kuru Dvaho. Prabhus? Tvavimo ve bhagavato Tathantavigagato Jadananta bhuva Krishna Yadu Kuru Dvaho. Tav imo ve bhagavato Hare Ram Shav Igha Gato Bharavyaya Cha Bhuvaha Krishna Yadu Kuru Dvahu. Matajis. Oh. Gato. Hare Ram Shav Igha Gato Bharavyaya Cha Bhuvaha Krishna Yadu Kuru Dvahu. Taimo ve bhagavato Hare Ram Shav Igha Gato Bharavyaya Cha Bhuvaha Krishna Yadu Kuru Dvahu. Tavimo ve bhagavato Hare Ram Shav Igha Gato Bharavyaya Cha Bhuvaha Krishna Yadu Kuru Dvahu. Do, both. Imo, these. Ve, certainly. Bhagavata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare, of. Hari. I'm sure. Part and parcel expansion. Iha, here in this universe. Dagato, to, has appeared. Bhara vyayo yaha, for mitigation of the burden. Cha, and. Bhuvaha, of the world. Krishna, the two Krishnas, Krishna and Arjuna. Yadu Kurdvaho, who are the best of the Yadu and Kuru dynasties. Translation. That Narayan Rishi, who was a partial expansion of Krishna, has now appeared in the dynasties of Yadu and Kuru in the forms of Krishna and Arjuna respectively, to mitigate the burden of the world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Nara is a part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. Thus, the energy and the energetic together are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maitreya informed Vidura that Nara, the portion of Narayan, had appeared in the family of the Kurus, and that Narayan, the plenary expansion of Krishna, has come as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with the purpose of delivering suffering humanity from the pangs of material burdens. In other words, Narayan Rishi was now present in the world in the forms of Krishna and Arjuna. Om Gyantimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna. So, I want to just give a bit of context to the appearance of Nara Narayan. So Nara Narayan are the children of Dharma and Murti. Dharma is what is Yamaraj, and he is the son of Lord Brahma. And as we know, he is the person who judges your karma. He's also the guardian of righteousness. He is also presiding over Narak, hell, and he's also one of the 12 Mahajans. He is an authority and conversant with the teachings of Krishna consciousness. And he married the 13 daughters of Daksha. And one of the daughters of Daksha was Murti. So they basically had this child. They had 4 children actually, and they had twins, Nara Narayan. Generally, when we speak of Nara Narayan, we speak of them in singular terms. We don't speak them as twins. I mean, we know they're twins, but generally we say them, like we say Radha and Krishna. So in the Padma Purana it's explained, there was this demon called Dham Udbhava. And Dham means pride, and Udbhava means manifest. So it means that he was the personification of pride. And so pride can also mean hypocrisy as well. So he was someone who, his actions are very familiar with other demons. That they want unlimited power, they want to be immortal, and they want it without being connected to Krishna. So anyway, so he wanted to be immortal, and he basically did these intense austerities. So this is at the beginning of a day of Brahma, and he basically was doing it to the Suryadev. So Suryadev, whenever they do, the demigods, as we know, are very easily pleased. So Suryadev came and said, I'm very pleased by what you've done. How can I help you? So he said, so Dham Udbhava said, I want to be immortal. I don't want to die. So Suryadev said, well, I can't give you that boon. Even I'm going to die. So he said, so he said, so he asked for so he said, okay, give me a way that I cannot be killed so easily. So he gave him this boon. He gave him his 1,000 armor that that were around his body that made him indestructible, impenetrable. So another name for this demon is called Sahasra Kavach, 1,000 armors. Now, so what basically the boon was that to defeat this demon, you would have to do penance for 1,000 years, and then you would have to fight this demon for 1,000 years. Then one kavach would fall off, and then you would immediately die. So this demon thought, I'm indestructible. Who is going to do 1,000 years of penance? Who's going to fight with me for 1,000 years? And once that kavach falls off, and they're going to die. So he foolishly began to think he's immortal. So so when demons become powerful, they abuse their power and they cause havoc and chaos in society. So a good example of that is Hiranyakashipu. He took over Indra's planet. He took over the universe. So Lord Nrsimhadev came. Ravana. Ravana had a boon from Lord Shiva. We read in Ramayana that when Lord Ram cut off his heads, one head would come back because he's got 10 heads. So they become very powerful and they abuse their power. Now demons, I don't know the Sanskrit term, I forgot it, but demons are known as Indra's enemies because Indra is put in place by Krishna to manage the universe. He's in charge of the demigods, so he has this administrative thing going on. So demons, they interfere with that. So naturally, because they're affecting Indra, then naturally they will also affect Krishna. So anyway, so this demon was causing havoc. all over the universe. So Murti, she was disturbed to see this and she prayed to the Lord, please come and deal with this. And as a result of her prayers, Nara Narayan were born, the twin personalities. Now Nara means Jiva Tattva. And Ayana means one who gives shelter to all. So Narayan is one who gives shelter to everybody. The Prabhupada explains that the energy and energetic came together in these two forms. So Krishna is always with his energy. Krishna is always, he's not by himself. So when we think of Krishna, generally people, when they think of Krishna in the different religious tradition, they think God is just by himself, but he's always with his energy. He interacts with his energy. So anyway, so this demon, he comes to, because in Badrinath there's a place called Badarik Ashram. So the demon comes then, he starts causing chaos. So Narayan tell him to stop disturbing people. And this demon, being very proud, he gets upset and he says, how dare you tell me what to do? Who are you? So then he challenges him to a fight. So Nara takes up the challenge. So while Narayan does the 1,000 penance, 1,000 years of penance, Nara fights with him for 1,000 years. Then one kavach falls off. And then Nara apparently dies. So the Narayan, he goes up to him and revives him. So again, they go back into fighting. Nara fights with this demon for another 1,000 years, while Narayan is doing 1,000 years of penance. Again the kavach falls off. And then Narayan again invigorates him. So this goes on for 999 times. So that's nearly, a million years, because obviously this is in Satya Yoga, it happened. So anyway, the demon realizes, I can't defeat this person. He's not dying, so he runs to Suryadev for protection. Because Suryadev is the person who gave him the boon. So Suryadev tries to protect him and says, please, leave him, he's my devotee. So Narayan curse this demon and Suryadev that you will be reborn and Nara will kill you in your next birth. So do you know who Dham Udbhava comes back as? Karna. And we know that from Mahabharata, Karna is the son of Suryadev. And Karna was born with one kavach that it was an impenetrable armor. He had the kavach and he had the earrings. And he was indestructible. Some even say he was better than Arjuna. So he had this system where he was born to Kunti Devi, and due to circumstance she had to abandon him, and he was raised by people who weren't of the royal family. And so he grew up very poor, and then eventually he learned martial arts from Parashuram, and then Parashuram cursed him because he lied about his social status. So anyway, so he gets to the point where he becomes a king because of Duryodhana. But from the moment he heard of the Pandavas, he was particularly envious towards Arjuna. He felt this natural enmity towards him. And Nara and Narayan, it says in the verse, they appeared as Krishna and Arjuna. So Nara is Arjuna and Narayan is Krishna. Obviously Krishna is the source of Narayan. So anyway, Indradev, who is the father of Arjuna, appears to Karna after one of his prayers and says, because despite Karna coming from a demonic source, he also had this righteousness side to him as well, where he would grant anything. He was very generous. So Indra said, can you please give me your kavach? Give me your earrings. So he gave him without arguing, he cut it off his body and gave that final kavach that protected him and the earrings to Indradev. So, it says that Karna, he has this split personality. He has this, because he has this very righteousness side. In India, especially amongst Hindu scholars, even the people, they think Karna was a very unfortunate person. He was actually a good person, but due to circumstances, he was put into this situation, and he was unfortunately obliged to be on Duryodhana's side. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in one comment, in an article, he writes that actually he was a demon because he was envious of the Pandavas. He thought he was better. He was actually a very proud person. And Madhvacharya in his commentary on Mahabharata, which is called Tatpar Nirnaya, he talks about this in more detail. He says how Karna's nature. So because if you think about it, what did he say? He called Draupadi. He called her a prostitute when she was being brought into the assembly by Dusashan. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Guru. So he insulted Draupadi. In Draupadi is the wife of the Pandavas, and she's also made Krishna her brother because she tied Rakhi to him. So he's insulted a great Vaishnavi. So so Arjuna makes his vow, I'm going to kill you. So Karna is not a great person. He may have had his righteousness side, which came from Suryadev, but the demonic side, which came from his past birth as his source, Damba Udbhava, that was very prominent in him. He's not a good person by any standard. So anyway, he came, and Arjuna killed him. So we know that pastime. We know that. Krishna and Arjuna, they appear, Nara Narayan, they appeared as Krishna Arjuna, but they also appear in Kali Yuga. They appear as Narayan appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Nara appears as Ramananda Roy. If you read Gaura Ganesh Dipika, it talks about the forms of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Krishna Lila. And Ramananda Roy is a combined form of Lalita Devi and Arjuna, and it explains because if you read teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Chaitanya Charitamrita, it talks about how Ramananda Roy is talking about different stages of perfection, and he talks about the Bhagavad Gita, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejects and says, give me something higher. So that aspect is the Arjuna aspect, is the Nara aspect coming out. So they have this eternal relationship. And also, what was also interesting, Prabhupada says about the Pandavas, especially, he says that they actually never go back to Godhead. They are always in the material world, because their purpose is to serve Krishna in the material world. So they'll always be associated with Krishna, but they will always be in the material world. There's other personalities like that as well, but the Pandavas will never go back to Godhead. So I found that really interesting. There's a famous letter that Prabhupada writes. So anyway, so if we look at the teachings, so if we look at the primary teachings, what is their primary teachings? Explain. So they are known for practicing austerity and detachment. So it's explained that when Narada Muni, he visited the ashram of Nara Narayan at Badarik ashram, and he taught Narada Muni the principles of austerity and renunciation, the essence of bhakti, and how to combine detachment with devotion. And after all these teachings, it's explained that Narada Muni became a leading proponent of Bhakti Yoga. He went all over the universe to preach it. So, and his main one, which I really want to focus on, is the principle of austerity. Austerity is something that's discomforting to our body and mind. So in this material world, like, if you think about it, analyze all our action, everything is austerity. Whether it's waking up, whether it's cooking, whether it's even doing your shoelace, everything is austerity. It may become easier, but it's still an austerity because you have to work. So in this world, we cannot take a step without austerity. And we see in this material world, people do great austerities, like to become rich, to become strong. Like you see these mixed martial artist fighters, like the training they do, especially when they come from the Eastern Bloc countries. They train in the winter. They climb mountains. I mean, I even saw this video of this one mixed martial artist. When he was a child, he would wrestle with these bears when they're cubs. He would wrestle with that, and it's like inconceivable, a human being wrestling with a bear. But such is the austerity, because they want to become famous, they want to become rich, like austerity is not a bad thing. But the problem with austerity, especially if you look at it in terms of the demons, is that when they use it for a material purpose, it always leads to some sort of problem in society. So we see Ravana, he did all this austerity, and he caused so much havoc. He was actually building a bridge that was going from Lanka to the demigod planets. It was like it was a staircase, so you wouldn't have to do all these go through the karma kanda activities to get to demigod planets. He was building like some sort of staircase that would take you straight there, because he was trying to get away from. He was trying to make it easy for everyone, and as a result, he did many bad things. We even see, what to speak of demons, we see even humans, so many you read about Stalin and the Chinese dictator, I forgot his name, but how many people did they kill through their action? They had unlimited power, and as a result of unlimited power, they abused it, and they killed millions and millions, more than World War II, from what I've read. So when someone has this type of power that they get from austerity, it's always going to lead to problems in society. So the point is, we have to ensure that when we do austerity, we're doing it for a higher purpose. We're connecting it to Krishna. And Krishna talks in the Bhagavad Gita, he talks about austerity of the body, austerity of the mind, and austerity of the speech. Because without austerity in Krishna consciousness, we can't make progress. So Prabhupada says, Krishna says that austerity of the body includes cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Like I remember growing up, like my dad was telling me when he was growing up in London in the 70s, people didn't have a bath in their house. Like they had to go to these public baths, like public places where you'd go to shower and clean. So, and most people in England who didn't have baths, they would have a bath once a week. So you can imagine it was a very smelly society, So now everyone has baths. I mean, I didn't experience that, but in the 70s, 60s, it was the norm, Like it was considered quite luxury to have a bath in your house, being simple. I mean, I think everyone was pretty simple. Like, if you're in a poor family, you don't really have a choice. Celibacy and non-violence. You can just go on the train. If you just accidentally look at someone, they're going to want to fight you, It's just like people on edge here. And not just here, but all around the world. Just controlling that urge, And then austerity of speech. Krishna says speaking truth, speaking in a pleasing way, palatable way, and reciting Vedic scriptures. It's like when I remember when I graduated from university, so I was applying to all these graduate schemes at all these corporate companies. And I remember going for this training, and this person said, so I was saying, well, I don't really have this experience, so how can I apply for this? I don't have this particular skill set. He said, just lie, And then this was a careers advisor telling me. And at that time I was practicing Krishna consciousness, so I didn't feel easy. I was like, if I lie, I'm not gonna, because when you lie, it will always come out. You don't have this skill set. And everyone I met would say, just lie, you just make it up, It's like, and it's so hard for people to speak the truth. Even when we, with our friends, sometimes we'll say a white lie. But Manu, in Manu, Smriti says that you should always tell the truth in all circumstances, because because you'll get a reaction for it. And there's a saying, I'm going to paraphrase, I don't remember it correctly, but if you tell the truth, then you don't need to remember anything. Because if you're lying, you need to tell another lie to cover that lie. So you have to remember all these different lies. But if you tell the truth, you don't need to remember anything. And I actually knew somebody who basically lied to people. He was a high-flying dentist, right? And for about 10 years, he told the devotees, I'm a dentist, I'm earning £1 million, $1 million. I'm going to buy an expensive property. And for years we believed him. And then I would always think, this person, he doesn't look very intelligent. He doesn't really understand, when I speak to him, he doesn't really come across intellectual. So how is he this high-flying dental person? So anyway, eventually the truth came out. He wasn't a dentist. He didn't even have an undergraduate degree. And it was so embarrassing for him. But I was really amazed by the fact that he was able to lie over 10 years to different people and remember all the lies. That's pretty difficult, It's like you have to tell one lie to cover another lie. So anyway, So if you lie, it will always come out. You can't, it's not possible to keep it. You can, like if you lie, as a criminal lies about, oh, I didn't do it, you know, the authorities always find that, right? So in Krishna consciousness, if you do a mistake, just say it, you made a mistake. You know, or if you don't know, you don't know. It's the best policy. Now, the other one is austerity of the mind. Peacefulness, simplicity, maintaining purity of thought. You know, it's quite hard actually to basically be quite, think purely for others. You know, when someone makes progress, to think, you know, I'm really happy for this person. Prabhupada explains that a devotee, he gets excited when he sees a devotee progress in Krishna consciousness, even better than them, because he feels this person is pleasing Krishna. And that consciousness pleases Krishna, and that purifies you. But it's so hard, you know, it's so hard. It's like, you know, it's like a lot of people are jealous and envious. Now, envious is something that's, you know, jealousy is like, you know, they have that, I also want that. Envious is, why do they have that? Only I should have that. So envious is worse. But the point is just to think good of other people. It's kind of hard, you know? Like when someone does, like I remember when I was doing the marathon in England, and like I couldn't, and I saw all these devotees who, you know, who came after me, and they were doing 100 Maha Big Books. And I was just stuck on 40 Maha Big Books, and I was getting so frustrated. And I was like, why can't I do this? You know, I've been reading the books, I've been associating with the devotees, I've had all the fired up classes, and I couldn't do it. You know, and like, then, you know, it took me a long time. You're like, this is, you know, this is what Krishna wants me. I have to, you know, work on myself. So, so now, like, I wouldn't say I'm 100% there, but I try to, you know, appreciate devotees who go out and do book distribution, even if they do one, you know, because it's the action that's more important. So having pure thought in mind about people, having purity of thought. Now, Prabhupada wanted us, so these are our austerities. Our austerity is to be practiced in conjunction with devotion and humility. We have to be humble. So, you know, they're saying like, if you get a facility due to austerity, you've got to become humble, because with great power comes great responsibility. So we have to be humble. So when we get a facility, we have to be like, due to our austerity, we have to be like, Krishna's given this to us for a purpose, and we have to use it in service. You know, we read about Arjuna. If we read Arjuna, he was the best archer of his day, but after the Mahabharata war, and when Krishna had gone back to Godhead, it's explained that he was escorting the queens of Dwarka to Hastinapur. And some bandit came, defeated Arjuna, and kidnapped all the queens. So then Arjuna was like despondent. He went to Yudhishthira Maharaj and said, you know, how did this happen? I was the best archer. I could defeat demons. I could defeat demigods, you know? And so Prabhupada explains in that purport, he says that Krishna gave him powers to deal for the Mahabharata war. It was like emergency powers, so he can serve Krishna's purpose. But once that purpose was done, was achieved, he took away those powers. So he was just a normal person again. So that's the thing. So these things that come to us, Krishna can take away whenever he wants, because they're his potencies. They're not our potencies, and we're meant to use it in his service. Our credit, our success is that we get something and we engage it in Krishna's service, and that's our austerity. So that therefore we have to be humble. So, you know, how do we practice austerity in Krishna consciousness? So, you know, I gave the example of the austerity of the body, the speech, and the mind. You know, we engage it in devotional service. So if we do something for Krishna, it won't destroy us, it won't degrade us. But if we do it for material gain, especially something to become better than other people, it's going to lead to our destruction. Eventually it will. You know, controlling our senses. You know, Narayan were the highest example of sense control, and they taught that it's necessary to transcend your material desires. Prabhupada said the sense control is the foundation of spiritual progress. So, you know, when you have, like I remember when I was young, I was 15, I got a part-time job. And at that time, you know, like, you know, in the 90s, I started hearing about all these designer clothes, like, you know, Ralph Lauren, Versace, Armani, and like, you know, I never heard of it before. So and then, you know, people of my age group couldn't afford that. So I thought, I'm going to go and buy that. So I'd get this, after school, I'd work at this job. I wouldn't get paid much. I'd save up all my money over 2 weeks, and I'd go down to Oxford Street, which is like your Fifth Avenue in London. And I'd go to all these fancy department stores and buy these clothes. And I would wear these clothes and get all these expensive clothes. So, you know, and everyone, you know, and people would appreciate me. You know, it was a pure ego thing. You know, and I used to think good about myself. But then, you know, like and then I remember like it was really funny because after 2 years, because you know like all these Italian designer clothes, they're really designed for really slim people. So I remember like I started to put on weight and I couldn't wear those clothes anymore. So my dad just gave them away to charity. It's like nearly £1,000, or it would probably be about 3,000-4,000 now, but he gave them away. And I was just realizing it's just like I used it for the wrong. I was buying it uncontrollably. I should use that money, used it for my driving lessons, used it for some maybe travel to India or used it for a higher purpose, but I used it for the wrong purpose. So this is the thing, we have to control our senses. When we have something, we have to make sure we don't use it for the wrong purpose. Do we really need this, right? So you know, like, is that, you know, so if we do something out of pride, you know, like, it will lead to the wrong motive. So if someone performs, you know, like even we can do it in Krishna consciousness. It's like, you know, we learn Shastra, we learn all these verses and we use it to smash people. You know, like I knew this devotee and he was very good at debating. So when devotees gave class, he would challenge them. And he was also a devotee, but he wanted to show his superiority, how he's good at, you know, using logic and reasoning to defeat people. But then eventually people started to get offended by him. And then what was the result, you know? He actually ended up leaving Krishna consciousness. So, you know, you've got to use things properly according to rules and regulations. If you're using it for pride, and it's so hard to check pride, it's going to lead to our destruction. So austerity is a very powerful tool. You know, and there's not much we can do in terms of austerity. Austerity is that, you know, like sometimes some people say devotees are really austere. But if you think about it, we're not that austere. Like if you compare it to the people who live, the yogis, like I remember going to Haridwar, which is, you know, before Rishikesh, and I saw all these yogis, these babas, and they had nothing, you know, and you know, they ate very simply. They had no belongings. They would sleep in the caves. I mean, I don't even like going for hiking in the countryside. You know, I find that austere. But can you imagine sleeping in these places, eating very austerely, bathing in the Ganga water? Like, I remember, like, because I took my grand's ashes to the Haridwar, and I remember, like, after that, you have to go in the Ganga and bathe, and it was freezing cold, and I've never experienced something that cold. And I was like, okay, you know, I was saying to my uncle, I can't do this, it's too cold. So then, you know, I had to get a jug he got a jug and he poured it over me, and he said, okay, that's done. But that was like a simple thing, but it was so austere, and you know, and like, I'm thinking, you know, I'm not really an austere person, so like, we're not really practicing austerity. Austerity is actually quite simple. You know, and Prabhupada says in another place, he says, our austerity is really following the 4 regulated principles, you know, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex, you know. So this is our austerity. Our austerity is very, so it's like we shouldn't really think our austerity is like the greatest austerity. We're not really doing much in one sense. So it's very easy for us to fall into that trap. We should be very grateful because our process is very simple. Like I was hearing a while back where you know, someone was like saying you know, like aspects of Krishna consciousness are very impractical, they're very austere, and this sannyasi, he chastised this person, said, what are you talking about? You're not even doing like 1/100th of the standard required in Krishna consciousness. You know, Prabhupada said to chant 64 rounds and he would load it to 16 rounds. You know, how many people outside wake up, you know, before Brahma Muhurta time? How many people read Prabhupada's books every day? How many people are worshipping the deities according to correct standard? There's so many rules. We don't do any of that. Like, we don't follow Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is our standard book. You know, Prabhupada said that if we tried to follow it, we wouldn't be able to get out of the bathroom in the morning. And that book was written 500 years ago, and people 500 years ago were following that. So we're not very austere. So it's like our process is very simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. So if we just stick to what Prabhupada says, then we'll get by. You know, we don't need to do anything extravagant. Just following the basic principles. So you know, like, so yeah, we have to do a bit of hard work. We have to do some austerity, and when we gain some facility, we have to remain humble. And humble is, you can remain humble by associating with devotees who are humble, reading Prabhupada's books, having good sadhana, you know, and then you know, it won't lead to our degradation. You know, like I think for me, like when I was growing up in Krishna consciousness, one of the ways to stay humble was to go out and Sankirtan. You know, and I remember one day I went out in Sankirtan and I didn't distribute one book, and I was out for like 3-4 hours, and it was like, you know, like if you've done book distribution in London, it's really intense. You know, no one stops for you, and people get really aggressive. And I remember like feeling smashed. And my mentor who was with me said, you know, this is keeping you humble. So when you go on book distribution, you have to get off the mental platform. You have to totally surrender to Krishna. And you know, whatever Krishna sends to you, whatever person Krishna sends to you, then that's what Krishna wants. Like I remember just going out one day, I distributed 5 books, and my godbrother, who's like a Maharati book distributor, he distributed like 40 books. This is not in the marathon time, but this is outside the marathon time. And I remember like, I was really determined because I'd been going, and so I thought, okay, this is what Krishna wants. Then one person I distributed the book to, you know, I spoke to him for like 45 minutes, which is not really the standard. And basically later, I met him 4 months later at the manor, and he was doing the Bhakta program. And then now he's initiated, he's second initiated, you know, he's doing service in India, in England, you know, and it's just, I'm not saying I was the person, it's obviously Krishna, but the thing is, it's like, you know, it was an austerity, and I tried to keep because of the experiences, a bad experience I had, I kept myself humble. I tried to keep myself humble, and I was around humble people, and you know, and that person came through. So Krishna will empower us like that, but we should never think we're doing it. We're just the instrument. We're not the doer. So anyway, so Narayan is like this amazing example of austerity, and using it in Krishna consciousness. And it's always, if it's not in connection to Krishna, it's just Maya. So it doesn't matter whether it's astrology, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's even being a good kirtaniya, you know, because you have to go through austerity to learn all these things. If it's not connected to Krishna, it's always leading to Maya. Okay, I'll stop here. If anyone has any comments or questions, like to share. No question? No comments? Okay, finish here then. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Oh, that was quite a delayed response. Oh, God. Oh, it's my kid. I don't know. Could you lift it? Okay, sir. Yes.
If you can speak a little bit more about how can we actually distinguish these different desires, what's material, what's spiritual? Because so many things, I mean, my understanding is that you can do basically whatever and have to connect to Krishna.
Yes.
It's like drinking alcohol or something.
Yeah.
But how, do you have any more like practical realizations about this?
So are you asking what is the how can we distinguish between material desires and spiritual desires?
Because spiritual desire is like, I just want to go back to Godhead, I just want to, I don't know, address the deities, I just want to listen to the books, but how can we be in the world and still don't feel like I'm a Maya, but you know, I'm still doing some spiritual things?
Yeah. It's a good question. You know, even if we're doing spiritual activities, we could think it's spiritual, but we're still in Maya, right? Like doing book distribution. You distribute 100 books, you think you're better than everyone. I mean, I've not had that experience, so but I know people who could easily come to that. I mean, maybe everyone can share their ideas, because I think we've all been through that. You know, like, I think you have to have really strong sadhana, and you need an association with someone who will correct you. You know, like sadhu means to cut. Sadhu is not there to just glorify you. So like you should always try to I mean, I used to do this a lot when I was in London, because when I was in serving at the manor in Pandavasena, the youth group I was in. So so when I first came to Krishna consciousness, like I used to get my ego smashed a lot. You know, I'd go out and I'd do service, and then people say, "Oh, Prabhu, that was so nice," and I'd feel good about myself. And it was like, because I wasn't trained, I'm still not trained, but you know. And I remember I had this friend who would come and smash me. I mean, he was a well-wisher, but he would smash me. He said, don't think you're advanced. You know, and at the time I thought it was really harsh to me. But then he kept doing it again and again, and he started to keep me balanced. Like, you know, there's so much I need to learn. You know, there's so much I need to fix in myself, and I have to make sure I always have the right conception in my mind that, you know, I'm just a servant of Krishna, and whatever I have, Krishna gives it to me. If I don't, you know, anything, you know, Krishna says He's the ability in man. You know, so I used to always have this type of association. He used to put me in the right place. Now, like, you know, like sometimes we want to do a service as well, and we think, you know, I want to do that service. But are you really doing it for Krishna, or are you doing it for yourself? Like, I've heard people say, you know, like, you know, I want to get married because I have a spiritual desire, right? Now, if you think of it, that's kind of it's not shastrically correct, because if you have a spiritual desire, you will do what Krishna wants you to do, which is you be a full-time devotee, worshipping the deity, doing preaching. You get married because you have a material desire, and you want to purify that desire and connect it to Krishna, right? Because you know, so you can't escape from material desire, but you can purify that desire by connecting it to Krishna. So if you're a businessman, you do it for Krishna. Like I've heard of devotees in America. I don't know them. I've heard that they have some martial arts club, and they get all their students to pay obeisances to Lord Nishingadev. They have Lord Nishingadev deity there. So the students, when they come in, you pay obeisances to the sensei, then you do it to Lord Nishingadev. So that's kind of connecting it to Krishna. So we have to ensure that everything, we have good association that keeps us on the right track. And we have to like speak to the persons, like, are we doing something? I'm not sure if I'm doing it for Krishna, because then they will help us. We can't do it by ourselves, we need association. I remember one of my god sisters. She was, you know, she left her service for the temple, and she was trying to find another career. And, you know, and our spiritual master said, you know, don't choose a specific job because of money. That's the wrong thing to do. You should obviously do it according to your guna, you know, and karma, but don't do it. It's the right thing, because you do that, then you're going to get frustrated. Either you leave, or you get sacked, or you get carried away. Do it because it's in your nature, and you can maintain your lifestyle of Krishna consciousness, you know? Because, you know, lots of people choose work, a specific job because of money, but that's the wrong thing to do. So you need association to always tell you. You know, you have to ask yourself, will this lead me, am I doing it for Krishna, am I doing it for myself? You know? And always reminding ourselves that, you know, who am I? Everything that comes to me comes from Krishna. Just like Arjuna. His powers came from Krishna, but Krishna took them away when they're not his. You know, I was hearing this class by Ravinda Swarup Prabhu many years ago, and he was talking about Prabhupada disciples, you know, who were zonal acharyas, and he said that they created empires within ISKCON. You know, if you look, I don't know if you know the history of England. Like, England was a very successful yatra in the 80s. It's still successful, but there was like thousands of devotees. We had this grade listed building called Croom Court. You know, we had devotees, because at that time they started selling paintings. I don't know why, but they were making millions, well, I wouldn't say millions, but hundreds of thousands of pounds. There was like so many devotees. And they were making devotees, and it wasn't just preaching to Indian people, but they were preaching to Western people. But when they left Krishna consciousness, these personalities, they didn't do anything outside ISKCON. It's like Krishna gave them that power to do something substantial, but when they left, he took it away. So therefore we have to always think, whatever we have, we get it from Krishna, and that kind of conception will come by associating with devotees who are true friends. A true friend will tell you on the wrong. A true friend will keep you balanced, you know? If someone keeps glorifying you, then you got to ask yourself, is this really my friend? I don't know, so maybe someone could share some of their own ideas, realizations, because I'm sure we've all been in that. Yes. Oh, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, the friend and I was thinking about what's our mind recently, false enthusiasm that we can have where we think
Yes.
we're advancing, or we think we're like more advanced than others. And you were speaking about that now in relation to Diminu's question. And I was thinking it's important to have people to correct us, but sometimes we're not able to take correction. Like we're not
Yes.
You know? So then how can we develop the consciousness to be able to receive feedback?
Yeah. I think, like one thing is when you're giving criticism to someone, you got it should come from someone who has your best intention at heart, who's not doing it just to smash you, though smashing also has its place. So I trained to be a teacher in England, and I was taught this method called the sandwich method. Sandwich is you say something nice, so they let their guard down, and then you say something, but you say in a very constructive way so they can apply it. I'm not saying you're a bad person because you did this wrong, no. You could have done this in this way. So you could be very careful how you say things to people, because people are sensitive. Even if someone said something to me in the wrong way, a few years ago I would have taken it the wrong way. So, so that's there as well. But there's also this strong reflection we have to have. We have to be reflecting, like when we read Prabhupada Lilamrita, we read the biographies of his disciples, read scripture, we come across people getting criticized and how they deal with it. We have to see us like these stories, these pastimes are not of people out there. They can happen to us as well. So we have to put ourselves in that shoes. We have to remind ourselves, because we're praying to Krishna for advancement, but Krishna can come in many ways to tell us what to do. So we have to keep reminding ourselves. But in the beginning, it's helpful to take advice and criticism from people we know and trust. Otherwise, some people, they may have good intention, but they don't know how to communicate, because truth must be palatable. And then they kind of slowly build us up, Like I don't like to name names. I remember my guru is Dharamrāja, and he was in Vrindavan playing kirtan in the Krishna Balaram temple. Now, I'm not sure. So Dharamrāja in the early days used to play chords. And so Indra Prabhu saw him playing chords, and Indra Prabhu is like this classical kirtaniya, he knows all the traditional melodies. And he said, and he apparently corrected Dharamrāja and said, why are you playing chords for, And it's a famous story actually. Why aren't you playing classical? Because chords, it kind of, it's not pleasing to Krishna. Obviously it's a devotion, and there's two senior devotees talking, but Maharaj took it in the right way. He didn't get offended, he didn't say, oh, you're a brahmachari, who are you to speak to me like that? But but that type of mentality, consciousness comes, through being trained, like having people from the beginning telling you how to improve, how to correct yourselves, and that you will come to that level. In the beginning, it's very difficult. And also, if we also give criticism, feedback, we should also make sure that we do it in a palatable way. Truth must be palatable. Can you imagine going up to someone whose family members just died and said, Prabhu, everyone dies. Why are you stressful? Why are you? It's not the way to do it. You have to be very careful how you communicate to people. So we also have that as well. But you should have a strong, good friend. Even one friend is enough. Who can tell you. You can go to I'm doing this. I'm not sure if I'm right. And so therefore we should have mentors and counselors, and that will really help. But yeah, everyone's different. So I guess we can different ways work for us. So does that answer your question? Would anyone like to share anything? No. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll finish here. Thank you. Oh, Haribo. He always asks at the end. Oh, he says that like the summary, the snapshot of the class.
Because you stopped your lecture, it was so swift, I couldn't think so. Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the wonderful class. I really appreciated the practical realization. You're definitely somebody who lived through these things.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, maybe it's not directly related, is it alright?
Yeah.
So here in Brooklyn now, we developed a Bhakti school. It's a nice program, and we already have our small community. So I guess our next step is to do more and more community building.
Yes.
And you are coming from a place with a already successful project since many years. We have very solid community. If you can give some advice, what is your vision now? What is the next step that we need to do to keep our people that we already have, and keep some peace?
This would have been a good question for you to ask to Keshava Maharaj, because he was the best person.
You're also the best.
Oh, I'm the worst person. Yeah. I think. I can't say because I was kind of at the low end, but I was around those people a lot. It's very important that you look after and train people. You create a community. You know, the first thing is you care about people and you make sure at least their needs are looked after, and you're doing it out of love. You're doing it because you want them to progress in Krishna consciousness. When you have a good community, when people know they're appreciated and cared for, then they will be inspired to take up service, and you give them service according to their nature, you know? And you have to provide training as well. And you know, there should always be this, and you should be able to inspire each other as well. People should be given responsibility. And when you do that, then people will naturally become inspired. They'll want to join this project, you know? Like, I mean, a good example is Chapati is also the same. I don't really know, but in Hungary, especially New Vajradam and Budapest Temple, they also have a similar structure. So I think, you know, devotee care and education is so important. Without these two, you can't really have a successful project. If you don't like each other, how are you going to work with each other? We don't want to be like the corporate world, you know, where you don't like each other, but you work with each other, you know? You don't want to be like that. Especially like investment banking is a very toxic environment, and those people are very horrible to each other. We don't want to be like that. So we have to care for each other, we have to look after each other, and then we have to ensure education is there. And give people and train people to take up these services. And then slowly, like you know, this project will grow. And I can see it's like, since I've been coming here, I've seen so many wonderful things. So it's definitely an exciting place to be, you know. It reminds me when I first joined Krishna Consciousness. And the Bhakti school at the Mana, that's grown a lot in the last 10 years, you know, primarily due to people like Keshava Maharaj, my god brother and Ananda Chaitanya Prabhu, all these different devotees that had inputs. But one thing I noticed was that there was care, there was education, you know, and education and training, and people, there was a support structure, you know, and everyone was given a chance. It was a family unit, so everyone was inspired to be part of that unit. If you don't have that, it's like a very, it doesn't lack substance and it won't last. And actually that's our austerity, trying to be nice to each other, you know, not criticizing each other, you know, and share, and we, you know, if we do that, then it would work. And I think it's definitely going to work. I saw a lot of good things here on Saturday, so I'm quite excited to be here and be part of it. Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hare Bol. Oh, Hare. Thank you. Hare Krishna.